Today we're going to look at creating equations from tables. So today you'll be able to look at a table and determine what the equation is. Some jokes. I could smash anything. Buildings, mountains. Can you smash my sadness? Boop. Vocabulary. When you are finding the equation for a table, you have to have the formula for a line. These are all linear tables today, line tables. The m stands for your slope and the b stands for your y-intercept. This is the equation of a line. So here we have a table. Before we create an equation for our table, we have to determine whether this will create a line. It will create a line if in the x and y axis they're decreasing by the same amount each time. You can see that it's increasing or decreasing by the same amount each time, so we can go ahead and use our formula and figure out what our equation is. Before we do that, we need to determine what the rate of change is for our table. The rate of change in y over the change in x. The change in y over the change in x is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So all we have to do is subtract this y from this y to get minus 6, and this x from this x to get minus 2. We take our minus 6 and our minus 2 and we put it into our formula to get minus 6 over minus 2, which equals 3. Now we have a rate of change for our formula. We can go ahead and use our linear equation formula to figure out what it will look like. Remember, n stands for slope and b stands for y-intercept. We're not sure what the y-intercept is yet, but we've determined what our slope is, which is 3. Do you see any other information we can plug into our formula? Well, we know what x is and we know what y is, so we can plug that in. So we have 10 equals 3 parentheses 2 plus b. Now we can simplify our equation. Remember, parentheses means to multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. Now we have 10 equals 6 plus b. To get b by itself, we have to do the opposite of a plus 6, which is minus 6. Whatever you do to one side of your equation, you have to do to the other side. We're left with b. 4 is equal to b. So our equation is y equals 3x. Remember, there's a plus 4 in front of this. There's a plus in front of this 4. So our answer then is 3. Or y equals 3x plus 4. That's our equation for our table. Let's look at another example. The first thing we want to do is we want to determine whether this is a linear relationship. Is it increasing or decreasing by the same amount each time? I can see that in this case, it's getting smaller by minus 2 on the bottom and bigger by plus 1 on the top. So we can use our formula for the equation of a line, which if you remember is y equals mx plus b. The m stands for your slope and the b stands for your y-intercept. Before we determine what our equation of our line is, we need to remember the change in y over the change in x. The change in y over the change in x is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This time, I'm going to actually plug my numbers into my formula. So I have minus 12 minus a minus 10 over 2 minus 1. I simplify the top first to get minus 12 plus 10 over 1. Finally, I have minus 12 plus 10, which is equal to minus 2 over 1. And minus 2 over 1 is just equal to minus 2. Now we've determined what our rate of change is, we can go ahead and plug we can begin using our formula. So we have y is equal to minus 2. Let's pick x, the first one here. Change this to minus 10, but it's not too messy, plus b. Now I'll begin to simplify. Minus 2 times 1 is minus 2. Now I have an equation here. Minus 2, I'll add 2 to both sides. A minus 10 plus 2 is a minus 8. Now let's put everything together. My equation then for my line is y equal to, remember our rate of change was minus 2, x minus 8. So our equation for our line is y equals minus 2x minus 8. Take a minute and copy this table down into your notebook. What's the first thing we have to do when we're creating an equation of a line? That's look and see if the amount on the top and the bottom are decreasing by the same each time. Okay. So it is in fact increasing and decreasing by the same amount each time. Before we determine our equation of a line, we need to figure out what the rate of change is. The change in y over the change in x is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'll plug my numbers into my formula. Get minus 15 minus 10 over 8 minus 4. Now I'll simplify this part of my expression here. And this is going to equal, turns to a positive, minus 5 over 8 minus 4 is 4. So my rate of change for this table is minus 5 over 4. Now that I have my rate of change, I can use my equation for a line, where m stands for my slope and b stands for my y-intercept. So I can begin to plug things into my formula. Feel free to pause the video and try this on your own. M is equal to minus 5 over 4, and x is 4, and y is equal to minus 10. Now I simplify my equation. Minus 5 and 4 is minus 20 over 4 plus b equals minus 10. This simplifies to minus 5. Now I have a one-step equation here. So I'll add 5 to both sides. The two 5s cancel out. And I'm left with b is equal to minus 5. So my equation for my line is y is equal to minus 5 over 4x minus 5. Let's look at one more example. Remember, when we're looking to create a linear equation, we must determine whether it's linear or not. So we have here a linear equation because it's increasing by the same amount for y's and then increasing by the same amount for x's. But before we determine what our equation is, we have to determine what the rate of change is. Change in y over the change in x is equal to y2 minus 1 over x2 minus x1. So I'll begin by plugging my numbers into my formula. 4 minus 4 over 2 minus 1. Simplifying this, my rate of change ends up being 8. So my rate of change is 8. Now that I have my rate of change, I can figure out what my equation for my line is. So I'll plug my numbers into my formula. Minus 4, 1 plus b. Multiply 8 to get 8 plus b equals minus 4. Now I'll minus 8 from both sides because I have an equation here. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Adding 8, so I'll minus 8. Minus 4 and a minus 8 is equal to minus 12. So my equation is y is equal to 8x minus 12. So today we learned how to create equations from tables. Thanks for tuning in.